Hello, Graham from ArionGames here, and another video talking about one of the other games I publish apart from Advanced Fighting Fantasy. Today, Crown&Dragon. So this has got a long history, even though it was only written really last year, this year. So back in 1994, I was at university and I'd been gaming for quite some time. And I came across a novel in a local bookshop for The Crown and the Dragon by Stephen Hunt, and I got this novel and I still now remember reading it as a 21-year-old and thinking, what a fantastic setting for a game. And if you haven't read the novel, I would strongly recommend it. It is obviously now quite some years old, but I don't think that matters. It mixes up Napoleonic, so you've got effectively muskets and dragoons and hussars and cannon and so on. But you've also got magic, and some of it is typical, if you like, fantasy magic, which is sort of wizards in robes, long beards, etc., etc. But they're state sanctioned, so they're called weirdsmen, and they serve the Queen. Now you've also got various other real world things in there. So the Crown and the Dragon is set in the Triple Realm, which is sort of the British Isles, but after an apocalypse that happened centuries, millennia before, when the Romans messed with things they shouldn't have messed with. And that broke up the continent, it broke up the islands, and although the history is sort of followed the same as our real world, it's not quite. And one of the distinguishing features of this is between the towns and the villages where you have at the moment open countryside. In this you have the tumble, so this is thick, dense woodland, jungle, forest. There's beastmen in there, there's weirded versions of normal animals like wolves and boar, there are strange humanoids, there's all sorts of strange stuff going on. So you've got Napoleonics, but magic, and weird forest and beastmen, and you've got steam tanks, and then you've got another type of magic user called the mummers, and these are effectively, again, state inquisitors, and they're blinded as part of their initiation ritual. But they can see into people's souls, and they can draw out information. So you've got all of this stuff mixed up, and I thought, wow, fantastic. But I never really did anything with it. On the other hand, it never really went away. It was always in the back of my mind, that would be fantastic for a game. Now, obviously, having been publishing games now for a few years, last year I thought, actually, why don't I try and contact Stephen Hunt and say, what do you think? And I did, and he is a very, very nice guy, fantastic to work with, and he said, yeah, why not? So we kickstarted it. Slight hiccup with the first one, but we kickstarted it successfully and released this. So rather than come up with a system of my own, or indeed use one of the systems that I'm already writing for, I went for Savage Worlds, specifically the Adventure Edition Suede. So Savage Worlds seems to fit this game perfectly, because you've got almost a Sharp vibe. If anyone has ever read or watched Sharp, they will know that he will cut through 5, 8, 10, 12 poor unfortunate French soldiers to get to the officer who is sort of the whole point of the story. And the wildcard rules in here match that perfectly. I wanted it to be a fairly fast and an easy game to play. I wanted mass combat, which of course Savage Worlds has. The magic is fairly easily adapted, so you've got your mummers and so on, but you've also got various types of priest worshipping the different gods, tree martyr, the world tree, etc. And because of the speed of play, and because Savage Worlds quite easily allows you to have extra characters attached to the group, What it means is, like when we did the play test, every player had a character, but they also had an extra. So there were the 4 wildcard characters and 4 extra characters, so there were 8 characters in the party. Now of course the extras die a bit easier, not quite as capable, but what it means is each player has a little bit of tactical advantage because they have someone else they can send off to flank an opponent or cover a doorway while they do X, whatever. And it's really, really easy to do. Now we ran this in Fantasy Grounds, and one of my jobs over the coming weeks, amongst a million other jobs, is to put together an extension for Fantasy Grounds so that Crown and Dragon can be run in that. And the game just works. Now obviously I've added in like loading rules, because in games with guns, how well you shoot is very important. But in games with flintlocks, how fast you can reload is also important. So that you may well have a character who's really, really fast at reloading but a crap shot, or someone who's a really, really good shot but takes an age to load. Or you could have someone who's great at both. So loading is important. And I got permission to use the Savage Worlds as a licensed setting. So obviously I'm licensing both the rules and the setting for both. And it's actually sold quite well. Now, as part of the Kickstarter, I said to Stephen Hunt, would you be prepared to allow me to re-release this as an EPUB version? He said, yep, no problem. And we have done. So on Drive-Through Fiction, you can get the EPUB of the original novel. But in the back of the original novel, I don't know if you can see that, coming soon, The Fortress in the Frost. Now, of course, that was 25 years ago. So I said to Stephen, would you ever write The Fortress in the Frost? And he said, done it, written it. And I said, well, would you allow me to put that as an EPUB as well? And he said, absolutely. And what it did was it spurred him to re-release both these, and hence The Fortress in the Frost, the follow-up. Now, I've not read all the way through it yet, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it, but that is also available on Drive-Through Fiction. You can also get the print books on Amazon. And I've got plenty of plans for this. Now, obviously, I've got lots of other games, and it's going to take a little while to get all of these written and published and so on. But I do have a plot point campaign planned for, like many Savage World settings. I also have a couple of companion books, one to cover non-army adventures, because in the core book, all players are Dragon Brown soldiers. And so they're part of the army, so they do what they're told. Now, of course, some players don't like having their characters controlled, and other players do. What it does do, of course, is it means you've got a reason to be doing what you're doing right out of the box. But I'm going to be doing a companion with some non-army ideas. It could, there's going to be ideas for Navy and customs officers and so on. But I'm also going to do a guide, a more in-depth guide to the world, to the continent, and so on. So I've got ideas for all of these. It is a good fun game. You do need a copy of Savage Worlds to play it. But I would recommend Savage Worlds Adventure Edition anyway, because it's a fantastic game. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. But this is something just a little bit different. There is some steampunk there, and I did speak to one player at a convention who said, "Oh, steampunk, it's been done to death." Well, this is one of the earliest steampunk books, so that's sort of what started it. So if you're interested, I will put a link in the video description to both the game and the novels, and hopefully give it a try and enjoy it. Thank you very much, and until next time, good gaming.